Hello and welcome to the first episode of a new series, Man in a Spare Room, the show that looks for reasoned opinion on multiple topics. What we're going to do with these multiple topics, we're going to revisit some of them, occasionally going back and forth, and that's going to be dependent on your feedback, your contact, what you want to talk about, and we'll grow in this together. The first of the topics we're going to discuss is based on narcissism and the exponential growth of narcissism throughout the world. Narcissism, in terms of this country alone, the UK, 5% of the population are thought to be, up to 5% anyway, are thought to be narcissists. That's up to 5% of one personality disorder. There's another 10. Now, a narcissist is the most evil, cold-hearted and soulless thing that you can ever bring into your life. And he'll show you a world that you don't know existed. Sounds like I'm being spectacular, but the truth of the fact is I'm not. Now, it doesn't matter what country, what sex, what language, if they've never met, it doesn't matter. The cycle and behaviour of a narcissist always remains the same. Author Maria Contiglio is quoted as saying, "Somebody should have warned us. Someone should have taught us about narcissism. Someone should have told us people like this do exist." My dealings with a narcissist actually alerted me to behaviour of a person in a previous relationship. There was so many similarities. In the previous relationship, there was things that I couldn't explain. I didn't try to explain. I didn't study. I didn't look. I didn't want to understand. I wanted to get away, and I did. The second one, when you see the similarities and you see the parallels, then I found that fascinating, and that's when I started to educate myself before I, let's say, ejected the other person, because I don't really like calling it what's called in psychology terms. Most people call it as a discard. Empaths or people with empathy don't discard. Narcissists discard. Things that you've got to understand. You can't just shout out to a person in the street, "You're a narcissist. You're a narcissist," because it fits an agenda. When you've really met a narcissist, they'll suck the life out of you, and you'll really, really know. It's emotionally damaging. In fact, it's got a name. It's called trauma bonding. So what is a trauma bond? A trauma bond is a connection between an abusive person and the individual that they abuse. It typically occurs when the abused person begins to develop sympathy or affection for the abuser. Now, this is sort of similar to Stockholm Syndrome. And if you know about Stockholm Syndrome, this is when kidnappers kidnap people, and the kidnapped person suddenly gets some form of bond or some form of sympathy towards their abusers. And once they've trauma bonded you, you fear to get away. You can't get away. But what we're going to do today, what I'm going to talk about is, it's such a big subject, is I'm going to talk about the cycle of a narcissist. It's basically based on a four-phase cycle. The phases are the idealization phase or love bombing phase. Then you've got a devaluing and devalue phase. After that, you've got a discard phase, and you've also got a hoovering phase. And the hoovering phase is called a hoovering phase because it's meant that they want to suck you back in. They never leave you alone. Even though we've got past the phase called a discard phase, it doesn't really mean they've discarded you. What they've done is actually just put you on a shelf, and they'll come back and see you again. To some of you, this might sound familiar. So the idealization phase, what's that about? The idealization stage, this stage is also known as the appreciation stage, and it is typically characterized by love bombing. The narcissist creates a sense of instant connection with you. They make you feel unique and wonderful and put you on a pedestal. Now, the idealization or love bombing phase is a phase when a narcissist, what they do, and very, very quickly they try to do this, it's basically what it says, they put you on a pedestal, they tell you all the things you want to hear, how you're the best thing you've ever met, you've never met anyone like you, you're so special, you're this, you're that. They just pump you full of air. And let's be honest with you, we all love to be pumped full of air, in a sense. And in the end, you know, they'll tell you they love you, they tell you they'll do anything for you, they tell you this and that. They want to get you in their control as quickly as possible. Some of these relationships, even though they run through this process, can last 2 or 3 months. Some of these relationships can last 18 months, like mine, to 20 years, sadly for some people. But what we've got to understand is it's all an act. The narcissist is one of the most manipulative, toxic, pernicious individuals that you'll ever meet. But at that time, when they're in that idealization, love bombing phase, you can't see that because it nearly feels normal. Once they've got you under their control, they then sort of become, or there might be an event that happens, and that event may be, you might have a small argument, or you've done something to displease them, said something, done something, you know. It could be anything. It could be, like I said again, an argument, or it could be something sexual, or it could be you made a comment about an item of the wearing, or it could be, honestly, it could be anything. But that'll automatically trigger the narcissist into the second phase, and that's devaluing. They're devaluing you. So what is the devaluation phase? The devaluation phase is when a narcissist stops portraying themselves as perfect, healthy, admirable, and desirable, and begins to show their true self, their fake self. What they're trying to do is they're trying to invalidate you, they're trying to devalue you, degrade you, dehumanize you, just manipulate you. In this phase of devalue, what a narcissist does then is they start going on the lookout for another person, or grab one of their old supplies, like before what I said, off the shelf, bring the old supply back, start talking to them behind your back. And then while they're still seeing you, and you are called, in this phase, you're called primary supply, this secondary supply, they'll garnish some supply off them in various ways. They could go out for meals, it could be sexual, it could be just a friendship, talking, flirting, but that's them getting supply. You're on the devalue phase, it's triggered, it started, you're on your way out. For me, it didn't happen. I ejected and run off because I just see manipulative behaviour, and with my personality, that kind of behaviour sort of alerted me 3-4 months before I actually ejected this narcissist. I was watching every single move and detaching myself. I still, at that point, didn't 100% know what it was in terms of, from a medical standpoint. All I knew was, this isn't right. There's too many things that weren't adding up. And that moves you on when you're on that devalue phase to the next phase. And this phase can be pretty brutal. And that phase is the discard. This is the phase when a narcissist ends the relationship with you. It's common to feel like you've been used and discarded. In general, narcissists will feel complete after the discard. For the narcissist, the discard phase is more complicated than just breaking connections with you. What that means, basically, is the narcissist is gallivanting off with someone else. They can't be alone. They can never be alone. So when the discard happens, there's somebody already there. in full flow, in full relationship, don't worry about it, because that person, that supply, that new primary supply, the same thing's going to happen to them. That's the way the narcissistic cycle works. And it can be pretty brutal. It could be just never speak to you again, just never turn up. Might discard, go away with this supply, sleep with them, or whatever they're going to do with the supply, and come back 2 weeks later, which is in a sense, a mini hoover. And because they've gone away and they've discarded you, they see it as they've done no wrong, and they can come back into the relationship and get back with you. Because in that space, when they've done their mini discard, you were both single. And this cycle continues. On a bigger discard, for me, for example, I stopped completely, no contact, for 9 to 10 months, nearly a year it was. And then one day you get this message, "Hey, how you doing?" And that's the hoover. What is hoovering? Hoovering is a behavioural term used to describe a narcissist or someone with narcissistic tendencies who uses emotional manipulation to lure their partner back into a toxic relationship. The last narcissist I was with, I said earlier, reminded me of a previous relationship where I believed the other person was also showing traits. Well, that person, why I say that even now, that person still sends me a message every few months, like nothing happened. When they feel like, when you've crossed the mind, they'll send, when they're not up to the skullduggery, they'll send the message. And like I said before, they're running down the list. Or try him, or try here, try. Because that's how they live their lives. I am another archive member in their WhatsApp, whether I like it or not. That's why this is one of them subjects that you're not going to cover in one 15, 20-minute program. This is a huge subject. And the terminology relating to narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder has been developed by psychologists and therapists over decades of research, as well as by survivors of narcissistic abuse seeking a vocabulary to understand and talk about their experience. This list is not meant to be exhaustive, but rather an overview of some of the most useful terms for understanding the pathology of narcissism and its impact on relationships and families. I know there's some of you out there who have had similar issues. So let's talk. Like, subscribe, share, tell your friends. Until next time, I'm a man in the spare room.